Welcome to this episode of the Sridhar Podcast. In this series for engineering grads, I want to help current students and recent grads from engineering school get more from their university degree and set them up for success in their careers after university. Every couple of weeks and for the next few months, I'm talking to tech executives, startup founders, and entrepreneurs to answer questions that students in engineering school have sent me and I have curated. My guest today is Palak Desai. Palak is the director at VMWare, where she leads product management for the AVI Networks product line. Palak did her undergrad in electrical engineering from India and subsequently completed her master's in computer science from the University of Southern California and has an MBA from Santa Clara University. Welcome, Palak.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sridhar, for having me on the podcast.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. So, Palak, you're an engineer who went on to study further after undergrad and took the MS plus MBA route. What was the thought process when you made this decision to do an MS and then an MBA subsequently?
Perfect. Yeah. So I did my undergrad in electrical, as you just mentioned. And, while I was at undergrad, I had this curiosity of how, your digital networks are powered, right? Essentially. And what is the software behind the hardware? The focus when I was in engineering school, I must have changed by now, but was much on electrical design, machine learning, machines in general, not so much as software. So my master's degree that I wanted to pursue was in computer science. So I did an electrical plus computer science. That was the rationale behind the further progression of my studying. And when I finished my master's, I really had no plan to do my MBA. It was more of a, hey, I'm going to get into the workforce and have some very much practical knowledge of, what is it to work, right? And how do my fundamentals in computer science, electrical engineering shape the products that I'm working on and building and working? So my initial first roles were in software engineering. I used to do software development for companies like Cisco and Juniper, right? Where I used to write software for routers and switches and things along those lines. And while I was there, I worked for certain telco accounts, and I used to be in front of the customers, and they used to yell at us all day long and saying what crappy products were those. So the natural curiosity in me was to figure out why would you buy my product if the product is so crappy. The why behind the what and the how, that is how I generally ventured into product management. So before I even went to an MBA school, I used to work for this PM at my own free time at Juniper. I used to volunteer my time. I used to do projects for him. I used to talk to customers for him, just to understand what is it about being a PM, like will I like the role, what kind of exposure I'll have. And I used to love talking to customers and just understanding their pain points. So that naturally drove me to A, make a career change into product management, and B, get a formal education in business, right? To understand how do you decide to price, as an example. Is it science or is it an art, right? So I wanted to get certain of my fundamentals straight, right? As I ventured into this world of business, what are some of the how do I put frameworks that I can keep in mind while I'm doing decision making? Those were the reasons why I decided to later on in my career, 5 years into engineering, decided to go into a business program.
Awesome. It sounds like you were very clear-headed from the undergrad to the master's part, and also after that, in terms of an MBA being giving you the frameworks for subsequent career and product management. What if I'm a student who's not as clear-headed as you were? I definitely wasn't this clear-headed, Palak, I'll admit. For example, if an undergrad student today is trying to decide between the options of working right after undergrad or studying further like you did, or even starting a business, as seems to be the case more and more these days, is there a framework that the student can use while making such a decision?
It is deeply personal to some level, right? And it's deeply to the point that how much risk you are willing to take. And early on, my advice to students would be take risk, experiment, try different things, right? What I did and what I regret not doing is experimenting more, right? If you feel that, hey, you know what, I've just finished my bachelor's and I want to get into the workforce and see what it is like to work, because what you learn in school and the practicality of it is quite different. You will be creating products at scale versus that scale is never taught to you at school, right? Performance may be taught to you, but scale, like running products at scale, creating software at scale, making sure that your software can scale to millions and thousands of users. If you're, say, for example, working for Google, or if you're writing a software for a company like Cisco, then you're powering the internet for so many users, right? So many of the underlying things are not taught to you in school that you only get via industry experience. So if you feel that, okay, I've gotten 4 years worth of engineering degree and I understand the basics and the fundamentals, now I want to see them play out in the actual workforce and the actual products and bring customer delight. If that's your goal and that's what motivates you, go for it. Like, work for 2 years, and you will get this breadth of knowledge that then you can apply it to certain master's principles and get the framework from your master's degree. Or if you feel that you have this really good idea, right, and you know that your idea is going to work out, or even if it doesn't work out, right, if you have this passion for a thing that you want to bring to the market, and you have this you have figured out an unmet need, and you want to experiment in that area, go for it. Create your own startup. You may fail, you may succeed, right? But it's all part of that process, that journey. What I have learned in this 15 years that I've worked is it's more about the journey rather than the outcome. The outcome will come, right? You'll get to it. You'll pivot as you go along your path, whatever that may be, whether it's getting a job in Google or Facebook or any other company, or starting your own company. You're going to make certain changes and decisions along the way to getting to that final outcome. But along the way, you're going to learn so many different things. So it's about the journey rather than just the outcome. At least for me, it was as I've navigated my different options within my career, that's been about the journey.
Makes sense. So what I'm taking away from what you're saying is, be willing to experiment until you find out what is it that excites you and what is it that you're good at. I think that seems to be the key theme that I'm hearing here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. How active, Palak, were you in extracurricular stuff while you were in undergrad or possibly even grad school? Students look for opportunities to improve their soft skills, such as speaking, professional writing, their communication skills, and so on. Do you have some suggestions on how they could go about doing this?
So in my undergrad, I was very active in certain leadership aspects. So arranging for committees, arranging for programs and organization, rallying folks to participate, getting attendance. Those are some of the things that I used to be very, very active in. Mm-hmm. And in my grad school, I really, really ran out of time, to be very honest. What I used to be active in I made a switch from electrical to computer science. So what I used to be very active in how can I improve my coding skills. So I remember going through USC, all the labs, computer science labs, bioengineering labs, and asking them if they have some coding project that I could take up for them, right? And even when I did my internship, I remember I did my internship with HP, and the norm was 40 hours, and partly after 40 hours, I would work for 80 hours just to kind of improve my coding skills, right? Because I was making the shift. And a few of the languages were never naturally taught to me in undergrad. So it really depends. Like if you feel that, communication is key, and, you want to hone in your leadership skills, you can always get into this organizing committees, or trying to, organize certain events at school. If English is a barrier and you want to become fluent at speaking, Toastmasters is one such example, or even practicing with your colleagues and friends, right? I remember when I moved into product management, mm-hmm. One key aspect of product management is presenting. You present to customers all day long. Mm-hmm. Initially on moving from engineering to product management, I was obviously nervous in speaking in front of customers. How will the message resonate with them? Will I be clear, crisp, concise, right? That would be the thing. So I used to practice in front of a mirror, in front of my friends, in front of anyone and everyone who would listen to me speak. Mm-hmm. You find an audience, right? So find what is it that you want to hone in, and then figure out how you can sort of hone in. So to answer your question, yes, I used to be active in a lot of activities in undergrad, not so much in masters, because in masters I was teaching myself computer science, both undergrad and masters. So I remember taking advanced algorithms courses, and then the day before the course, I would actually take an undergrad book and read the undergrad concepts and then go to the advanced course. So I was self-teaching myself 2 degrees at one time, and I was really lack of sleep and lack of time.
Wow. Okay. Great points, Palak. I think what I'm hearing you say is you were doing things at undergrad which you were not good at, but you were finding opportunities to practice that more and more with people with a sort of a friendly audience, so to speak, right? People who would not judge you and whatnot, but in the process you were getting better at it. And of course at masters you were super pressed for time, so you only had time for academics. Great point.
Pretty much. And if I were to redo my masters, I would say I would take it slow. So I finished my masters in a year and a half. Again, I had this urgency to get into what is it to create products and write software and really get into the real world use cases and scenarios. So I finished my masters in a year and a half. I don't recommend people should do that, because then you are just constantly, trying to take as many courses and quickly trying to move on to the next level. Rather than that, I would take your time, sink in, get all the information, take some extra courses if you so feel like, and then move on to, to your workforce.
Got it. Makes sense. So let's say I'm an undergrad student and doing a bunch of things while I'm at university. I actively work on projects and my coursework. I participate in competitions. I'm helping friends maybe market their online business. I'm active in sports and performing arts. I do all of these because it's fun, right?
Yeah.
But how do I find what is my specialization, in the sense, what are the skills that I should really get much better at? I'm sort of, I never, let me put it this way. If I'm a student who did not, spend a lot of time thinking about the bachelor's, the coursework that I chose, right? How would I find out what I should be really doing that's valuable? You have some thoughts on that?
Absolutely. So I'll give you my example, right? And I'll try to answer this question a little differently. I come from a very diverse background. What I mean by that is my parents all educated. My dad is a PhD from university. My mom's a doctor. She did it from Nair. And my sister did architecture and I became an engineer. So you can see within the four of us, we have pretty much covered a lot of degrees that one can have. Right. And when I was growing up, my mom really wanted me to become a doctor. She wanted me to follow her footsteps. Now, I was academically always very, very, very good, right? So I could do biology, I could do math, and I could do physics. I could do them all three. I would do comparable in terms of grades, right? But did I wake up every morning trying to understand the human anatomy? Not really. Did I wake up every day trying to solve a physics problem? Absolutely, yes, right? And what is it that drives you? What is where you find your passion, where you get up every morning and say, yes, I'm going to do this today, right? And this is going to really, really excite me. And then you try to hone in your skills. So I ended up taking engineering independent of what my mother wanted me to do. She really wanted me to get into med school, and I would have I had the grades to get there. But I thrived in engineering school, very different from what my parents did, because that's where I found my analytical brain being used the most. And that is what I enjoyed. And it came naturally to me. Pretty much, like, if you're doing many things, awesome, that's great. It's always good to experiment, because that's where you will see where you're really, really good at. And once you find what drives you, what motivates you to get up every morning and do that over and over again, try to hone in and try to polish up your skills in that, into things that you're very good at, and it'll be enjoyable to you.
Makes sense. Okay, cool. This is a question that a young lady from my alma mater actually sent in. She says she hears it's a good idea to have a 5-year plan for my career, but as a current student, she's a little unsure about how to connect the dots between where she is now and where she wants to be 5 years from now. So is it even a good idea to have a 5-year plan? And if the answer is yes, how should she go about doing it?
I mean, depending on the stage in your career, I don't really believe in 5-year plans, right? I mean, things are so lucid, your environment is so lucid, right? The things are fluid. You can't have such rigid 5-year plans and stick to it. You have to adapt with your ever-changing circumstances. It's like losing weight. If you want to lose weight, can you say, I'm going to lose 30 pounds? You start with a 5-pound goal, and then you move on from there. So if you're a student, I would say, again, make a plan for yourself for the next 6 months. It could be excelling at blog courses, or it could be, hey, I want to find an internship and just going at it. Like, I mean, what would your 5-year plan even look like, right? It's so far out there. Make small goals, and that small goals will actually pave the path for the next 5 years. Then you, instead of making a yearly plan, you may make a 3-year plan, right? And then see how that 3-year plan shapes the plan for the next 5 years. Because your experiences will also change the way you approach things and the things that you do in your work, in your school, and other environments, right? So let those experiences speak to you, rather than being so rigid as to, okay, I have a 5-year plan. Within the 5 year, I'm going to become a senior PM, or I'm going to become a senior software engineer, and for that, I'm constantly chasing. And in chasing, you're not enjoying what you're doing, or you're not giving it your full best.
Makes sense. So you're saying shoot for something that's a little smaller in time horizon, rather than something that's so far out there. Okay, makes sense. Are there specific courses or topics from your engineering and MBA coursework that you really find useful in your work every day? Put another way, can you list some courses or subjects that you think all students, it's super important for all students to learn well while they're in university?
Yeah, absolutely. So from my master's standpoint, I would certainly say operating systems, algorithms. I was a network savant, so I networking courses. The base fundamentals on which you build anything, that you should always master. So algorithms, data structures, I have those books even today. I try to write a linked list and reverse it even today, just to see if I have sanity around the things that I learned back in school, right? And those are things that will carry on forward. And you may not necessarily understand how you're applying algorithms, but you're always thinking about problems in a very analytical fashion. And this is where your algorithms, your data structures, the base fundamentals would kick in and come into play, and that you should always have them nailed down to 100%. In terms of my business school, I did a lot of pricing and packaging and go-to-market strategy. And those are the courses, again, you don't necessarily pin down the frameworks. And okay, if I'm poised with such a situation, most of the cases you're never going to go to the framework, but you're using the framework in one way or the other, although you're not calling it the framework, right? So for example, if you're trying to do product management, new product introduction, there are a variety of circles method, right? How do you figure out what is the customer need and prioritize and whatnot? You're not going to sit down and write down, this is my framework and this is how I'm going to, in each bucket, this is what I'm going to do. But when thinking about the problem, you're naturally going to apply the learnings that you have had, right? So certain base go-to-market strategy, if you're into the business side of the house, or you want to pivot into business side of the house, I would say strategy, go-to-market strategy, pricing, packaging, product evolution. Those are some of the courses that you should think about. And again, it varies from a B2B versus a B2C space. What my experience has been mostly in B2B. So these are the courses relevant to more B2B kind of businesses.
Great. That's an awesome list. I think that'll be super helpful, Palak. Thank you. Moving on from college and university, let's focus on people, young professionals who are at an early stage of their career, right? What are your thoughts about money at this stage in one's career? In your case specifically, did you save or invest your earnings? And again, I want to add a note to the audience here. Please remember, this is not financial advice and do your own research. But I would love to hear, Palak, from you, what your thoughts were about money early in your career.
Yeah, so I would be upfront and say I'm not a big spender. I am, in fact, on the other side where I do not like shopping. It is an anomaly, but that's really the fact. So as a result of that, I'm a lazy shopper, right? So if I could go into a store and just buy something and just be done with it, that's the way I prefer, versus, hey, let me browse 10 different websites and find the best sale, and if I find the best value for money, that's absolutely not me, because I think it's an absolute waste of time. That's my personal take. So as a result of the way I function, I did save and I did invest. And we bought a house pretty early on, so that was investment that has seen some fruition as the market has boomed, and we invested in the stock market and other things. I think saving is critical, because then it gives you the ability to make some moves in your career that you wouldn't have done otherwise. As an example, if you want to quit your job and start a business, if you have your cushion cash to rely on, the business can go, anyways, right? If you want to take the risk, and if you have the cushion cash to rely on, then that gives you that much more flexibility to do all those moves anytime in your career versus worrying about cash. But if you're one of those, if you're just, okay, I get my paycheck and tomorrow I'm going to go buy a Ferrari, then awesome, have a good, it's a good drive, but then you may not necessarily have that cushion cash to do something extremely exciting, but that may need you to take a pay cut or need you to let go of certain cash that is absolutely required for your lifestyle. But that's just my philosophy again.
Makes sense. I think I can agree with a lot of what you're saying. So I expect that we're probably coming to the last couple of questions. I expect that students listening to this or viewing this podcast will have a lot of follow-up questions they want to ask you, right? Assuming I find a scalable way that I can get these questions to you later via email or something similar, and I'll put instructions on how to do this in the comments below this video. Are there specific topics or areas for these questions that you have a preference or an interest in answering if they come from the students?
Absolutely. Anything on the side of business and technology, please shoot them my way. B2B businesses, networking, infrastructure, technology. I have a variety of interests in all of infrastructure. I've done compute and networking, portfolio products in engineering and product management capacity for a very, very long time. And of course, if you need advice on careers, how to navigate, what to do, if I've done this for a very long time and I want to make a shift into something else, how do I navigate all of this? If there are questions, I'm always happy to help.
Awesome. Thank you, Palak. I think I also remember that you mentor, as part of your regular work, you mentor a lot of PMs in your organization as well, if I remember.
I do.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. So finally, let's have some fun with some rapid fire questions. Name one book or TV show that changed your thinking significantly.
Oh, Shoe Dog is one book. Creativity is another. TV shows. I'm watching the Ted Lasso show right now. It's amazingly funny. It's very, very. It changes your thinking around positivity.
Awesome. I haven't heard those two books that you mentioned. The first one was Shoe Dog, did you say?
Yeah, sure. It's around Nike now. I'm not very, very good with names. I can't forget. I forget the name of the author. I will actually send it to you. But it's around how Nike was built and the troubles that they had to go through as they were scaling the business. And creativity is around, I think it's Pixar.
Oh, Pixar, exactly. I think I've heard about that one. I think it's Ed Catmull's book, if I remember correctly.
It's Ed Catmull's book, yes.
Awesome.
And I'm bad with names. I always forget the names. But yeah, those are the two ones.
Cool.
Yeah.
What was your best career move and your biggest career mistake?
My best career move was moving to a startup in 2012. The startup failed, but oh man, I learned quite a bit through that failure. And my biggest mistakes were not taking enough chances early on. I should have experimented more. I'm still experimenting right now, but the sooner the better.
Yeah, awesome. Makes sense. And finally, if you could tell your 20-year-old self one sentence today, what would it be?
Oh, if I were to go back in time, it would be, it's about the journey, not the end result. You will learn always along the way. So forget about the end result, whatever that may be, enjoy the journey.
Awesome. Palak, fantastic talking to you today, and thanks for joining. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Likewise. Thank you, Sridhar, for inviting me, and best of luck with your pod.
Thank you.